car dealers are having to pay more and more interest every single month on cars that they have on their lots that are not selling. If you go to any garage, any mechanic right now, they are backed up. They're sending letters to their manufacturers saying we need cheaper cars because car affordability is at the worst place it's ever been in history. Right now, the average new car is about $50,000, while the average used car is about $25,000. Even if you're not buying a new car right now, your costs for owning a vehicle have gone up. Insurance is also a massive problem for the average consumer right now too, because all of those rates are also going up. So car dealers are in survival mode right now, and we're seeing this across the board that dealer inventories are stacking up right now. It's so bad that they're starting to turn, on the new car side, turn down allocations. This is something that we haven't seen over the course of the last 3 years. High rates are a worry for dealers. So really, these rates are a big problem for dealers in two ways. One is the obvious. It makes cars more unaffordable. And this is something that dealers worry about a lot, is because they're not moving metal. And the reason why they're not moving metal is because prices are too high and consumers cannot afford them. And then on top of that, they're not getting loans for these vehicles like they used to. So these car dealers, they can't move these cars at these prices and at these rates because the consumers cannot afford the monthly payments on them. And then number two, what you have is you have their floor plan costs. So since interest rates have gone up over the last 2 years, so have dealer floor plan costs. And a year and a half ago, this wasn't such a big deal because dealers were still moving cars very quickly. Demand was still very high. But now, as demand's going down, as production from these auto manufacturers is going up, and as cars are sitting on lots longer, it becomes a big problem for car dealers because they have to pay interest on their floor plans, the credit lines that they use to actually have their inventory. And as these cars sit for longer, as they're doing right now, days of inventory creeping up and up and up and up, that's the more interest they have to pay. And because the interest rates are higher, that means just the more money coming out of their pocket and the more costs they're going to have on top of their inventory. So we're seeing a lot of car dealers right now complain that this is historically one of the worst starts to a year that they've ever had. And what they attribute this to is the lack of affordability in the car market for consumers to actually buy cars and the high rates. So these factors are making it very difficult for car dealers to move the inventory they have because consumers are very cautious. They see that the prices are too high, and on top of that, if there's a consumer that walks into these car dealers' doors that actually wants to buy a car, it's becoming increasingly more difficult for these consumers to get approved for a loan. Banks are tightening up, and with their interest rates being where they are, it's very hard for a consumer to be approved for a loan, and if they can't be approved for a loan, they're not going to be able to buy that car. So the average American household makes about $70,000 a year, and a lot of these households in the last couple years signed up for a car payment that's about $1,000. So a lot of these households could actually be paying about 20% of their take-home just to their car payment. This is just their car payment. This does not include any repairs. It doesn't include insurance. Insurance is also a massive problem for the average consumer right now too, because all of those rates are also going up. So on top of this, even if you're not buying a new car right now, your costs for owning a vehicle have gone up. Just in the last year, insurance costs have gone up by 20%. And what does this do to? Well, you have car prices that are very high right now, so you have to add in the expense. When these insurance companies have to go and replace vehicles, the cost of replacement is way more for these insurance companies. On top of all of this, repair costs are higher. Parts are higher because it's been harder to get parts, and labor to fix cars is higher. If you go to any garage, any mechanic right now, they are backed up. And I deal with this all the time, and I am a small used car dealer. We have to get things fixed, and we know that all these mechanics are busy. And why are they busy? It's because people are getting their cars fixed way more right now than they're going out and buying new cars. New cars and the monthly payments have become so expensive that people are going towards fixing their cars and making them last longer instead of signing up for this new $750 payment. I can't blame them at all. But what this causes is a backup at these mechanic shops. It causes parts to go up in price to fix these cars. And since more people are going to get their cars fixed more often, mechanics can charge more money. All of this just costs more money for repairs, for replacement. And when those things go up in cost, your insurance premiums are going to go up. And this affordability crisis is a real thing. See, right now the average new car is about $50,000 while the average used car is about $25,000. And just over the last few years, that's an increase of almost 40%. And if affordability wasn't a big enough issue, then quality is. And I can speak to this on the used car side from my car lot and my experience myself seeing these cars go through the used car dealer auctions. What we're seeing right now is that people aren't trading in their good cars like they used to. They're not just trading in something that already works for an upgrade. Because car payments are so high, if somebody has a good running car, they're just keeping it. They're not trading in their 2005 Toyota Camry anymore if it's paid off, because they don't want to sign up for this new $750, $800 a month car loan. They're going to keep what they have for longer, meaning trade-ins aren't getting to the auction and the good cars aren't coming to me. All right, so we have these numbers coming out, and new vehicle sales pace declined to the slowest since March of 2023, and new vehicle sales were down by 26.2% from December. Now, I know this sounds like a big decrease in sales, and it is, but what I think is happening is seasonality, and this is what we're getting back to. So going from December to January, or December through January and February, what we have is we have a decrease in sales. Your new car sales slow down, your used car sales slow down. You come after the holidays, people have less money. They're just not in the mode to buy cars. What's going to be interesting is we're going to look at these numbers. March and April, the spring selling season. These are the numbers I'm more interested about, because typically during this time, this is not abnormal where we're going to see these kind of declines in the market, so it's not alarming. Usually if we're going to have a headline come out like this, you're going to see, all right, car market's crashing, car dealers aren't selling anything, and typically I would be one to talk about something like that. But I know that this is more of a seasonality thing, especially from new car dealers. It's just time in the market. And what I'm going to be interested to see is what comes out in the spring. We know that tax time is right around the corner. I'm preparing for it as a used car dealer. I'm preparing for sales to spike. In the end of February, March, April, that's what we're going to see in the market. New car dealers, they get a bump too. So those are the numbers that we're waiting to see. But what you're seeing now, just seasonal. So I saw this post from a car dealership guy, and he said that over the next 2 years, there's planned about 130 new releases of new vehicles. And the crazy thing is about 50% of them are EVs. And this is a problem going forward, because right now what we've seen is the early adopters have already adopted. We've seen them. They bought Teslas already. And now they're not going to need new vehicles for a while. And what we're seeing from these other manufacturers that make up this 50% of the 130 new vehicles that are coming out is that they're having a harder time getting people to buy them. When you think of EV, a lot of people are going to think of Tesla. They're not thinking of Mach-E's. They're not thinking of Ford Lightnings. They're not thinking of these other manufacturers to buy these vehicles. And that's why you're seeing this rollout become very slow. And while a lot of these manufacturers are having a hard time moving these cars, I use the Mach-E as an example so much, because you can go to any Ford dealership and they're just sitting everywhere. Talk to salespeople at these Ford dealerships. They're not selling them. And nobody even asks about them. They don't want them. They don't test drive them. Nobody wants these cars. And the answer is not, okay, let's make more of them. So maybe people will eventually wake up and want them a year from now, 2 years from now. The transition is not going to be that quick, and a lot of these manufacturers are going to put themselves and their dealers in a difficult place while they're trying to push this down consumers' throats, when the consumers, they don't want them. All right, so one of the funnier headlines that I've seen from Automotive News is NADA show follow-up, Ford promises more dealer engagement. And then they skip the Q&A. So they go out and they talk about how Ford wants to be more transparent. They want to talk more with their dealers. And then when it's time for questions from the dealers, they're like, nah, we're good. We're good. this. It's a funny thing, and it's something that the Ford dealers especially have been dealing with, where they're not getting this response from Ford that they really want. They've been screaming about this EV rollout, about getting prices lower. It seems like they're not on the same team, and these Ford dealers have been talking about this a lot. It's like a slap in the face, a spit in the face, however you want to say it, of these Ford dealers when Ford comes out and says, "Yeah, we want to talk to you more. We want to have more engagement," and then it's time for them to answer questions for their dealers. They're like, "Nah, we're good. We're good. Move on to the next thing. We'll talk to you later." It's just amusing. All right, so now we're seeing even Toyota invest more money into this EV space. They just invested $1.3 billion into a massive assembly plant in Kentucky, and this is all for their EV build-out. So we've seen that Toyota hasn't been one of the front runners in the EV space, and probably they're doing the smart thing, right? Because they're waiting for this adoption to catch up. And it's not there yet. They know that they have to invest in their future, but they're being slow about it. But even a company like Toyota, who has kind of drug its feet, you know that the market is wanting to go that way because you're seeing it from this current administration. Now there's a debate whether or not we get a change in administration, which way these automakers are going to want to go. We know that at least a company like Toyota, they have to prepare for future electrification of these vehicles so they don't get left behind. And you're seeing this by investments that they're making now. Whether or not it's the right call, whether or not more people are going to want to buy these EVs is still up for debate, but at least Toyota is covering its bases on not being left behind if the market moves even more in that direction. So it's not only these manufacturers like Ford with their Mach-E's or these dealers that are getting hit by this really big price crunch in the EV space, this race to the bottom. Hertz just reported that they had a net loss of $348 million in the last quarter, and a lot of this is due to them having to sell off, not having to, but wanting to sell off their Tesla fleet. So bringing a Tesla fleet into their rental services for Hertz was supposed to be this big selling thing, and consumers were supposed to be lining up to actually get this, but it came along with a lot more problems than they once anticipated, and turned out to be more hassle than it was benefit for Hertz, and that's why they're getting rid of all of these Teslas. And really, charging was a big issue. Having the vehicles charged when the next consumers were coming in to rent the car turned out to be just a big feat, and something that Hertz was not willing to overcome to keep them in their fleet. So they're getting rid of them. Another big thing is just the volatility of the pricing of these used EVs. And as Tesla keeps lowering their prices, and as people just end up not wanting a lot of these other EVs in the space, there keeps on being a price crunch. And this is not good for rental company, because after 2 or 3 years of usage, they have to resell these vehicles on the open market. And if the prices from Tesla continue to go down, then it can't be a stable source for them, and they can't predict really where the prices are going to go. So it's just not been a viable solution for them. This is why you're seeing them just really dump a lot of their EV fleet, and they're probably not going to get back in the space for a very long time, but they're having to lose a lot of money learning in the space. The quality has plummeted over the last let's start this clip over. No, this is not going to work. Wind. For them, no. Very difficult for car dealers to move the inventory. It just didn't work for them as a rental source. No, I'm not doing this well.